Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's Window Company, New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding is provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, M&T Bank, Muss Development, LLC, Des Moines Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, W Financial Mortgage Fund, the Witkoff Group.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoller. New York City is a place where individuals can achieve fortune, success, and they can be very different. And today, I'm very fortunate to have an individual who came over from India a number of years ago and created something that's very appropriate, Apple Core Hotels. And you know I use an Apple. So today my guest is Vijay Dandapani. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me over, Michael.
Now, Vijay, you were born in India, and you said to me you were like an Air Force brat?
Well, I was an Air Force brat, yes. My father was in the Air Force, Indian Air Force, that is, yeah.
When we got together, you were saying that many times there were a lot of wars.
A couple of wars, one of which I was a little kid, 8 years old, had enemy aircraft flying over, dropping missiles, things like that, yeah.
Now, so you graduate high school and then you go to the school for hospitality.
In India, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Oberoi School of Hotel Management. Actually, it's after college. I went to undergrad degree there, and then after that went to the Oberoi School of Hotel Management.
The interesting thing about the Oberoi School is that you truly get hands-on experience, is what you were saying.
Absolutely.
Because some of the American schools of hospitality, they don't teach you how to cook. They don't teach you, they show you technically, but in Oberoi...
Absolutely. We were in the kitchen from all aspects of it, including kitchen stewarding, where you wash dishes, to doing mise en place for breakfast, lunch, dinner, to actual cooking in the desert section as well. So we did the whole gamut in the kitchen.
So when you finished Oberoi, what happened? Where was your first job in India?
My first job was with the Oberoi Group at their flight catering operation in Delhi, New Delhi. And so
that's when the flight, that's when catering in the airplanes was really catering, right?
Well, absolutely. It was considered, a privilege in some senses, because flying was a privilege then, not the kind. No, it's good that we have it on a mass scale right now. Obviously, it helps our business, but back then it was for the select few.
So, besides the flight, what other aspects of Oberoi? Were you in the Indian hotels?
Well, the training program itself was at a 5-star luxury hotel of theirs, and so yes, I had worked in the front office, the restaurants, the banquets, including lifting banquet trays. So done all aspects of a regular hotel.
Then how did you decide to leave India and come to America?
Well, after a couple of years, I wanted to study higher management, so to speak, and I applied to Cornell's Hotel School for their master's program, and I was accepted, and that's how I came over.
And you were fortunate that you had the Aga Khan scholarship?
Well, yes, the Aga Khan Foundation has, or used to have, I'm not sure what it is now, one scholarship per country per year. And I got their scholarship for that year to come to the United States.
Now, you were married at this time, correct?
I was married at that time. My wife, too, was, I'd met her at the Oberoi program.
So she's been in the hospitality business also?
She left soon after marriage.
And so you come over you go to Cornell, and the master's program is 2 years?
It's 2 years, correct, yeah.
And after that, what happens, one of the good things about Cornell is you have an opportunity to get a job. They have some job placement. And one of the interviews was with Champions Gate?
Grand Champions Resort, correct. It was a division of VMS Realty out of Chicago, and they had this resort division set up originally to begin in Indian Wells, California, and then on to other places.
Let's talk about that, because you told me it was very interesting. You know, at that time, they spent a lot of money. They built a tennis, besides a tennis court, they built a tennis stadium.
They built a tennis stadium. It was a $120 million resort, the cost of construction back then in 1987. Grand place. It had its own tennis stadium for a tennis event. The event is no longer in that resort, but it's still in the same town. So it was a single-purpose stadium that was built specifically for this event, and it was, of course, pretty magnificent.
And what do you do at the hotel over there?
I was an operations analyst. That was my job there. So I was involved with every aspect of the resort, including the tennis stadium, the tennis facility, and food and beverage, just about everything. It had just opened, so there was just a lot of work.
And how long did you stay there?
I wasn't there very long, just a little over a year.
And then this gentleman from India ends up in North Carolina?
I was in North Carolina for a couple of years, working for a regional owner and operator of hotels, including Hilton Hotels in Macon, Georgia.
Macon, Georgia, and where else? I mean, they were Hiltons,
well,
they were Days.
There were Holiday Inns, Days Inns, and from Nashville to Virginia to all these small little towns in the South, yeah.
And then why'd you come back to New York City?
Well, I came to New York because the Big Apple is a magnet to so many people, and had an opportunity here, and so I came over here.
So you come here with your wife. Did you have your daughter was born at this time?
My daughter was born, yeah.
Your daughter was born at this time. You come over, and you get a job with the legendary Chotwell.
That's correct, yeah. And
Chotwell has had a number of hotel businesses over the years, and you came over in the last recession, right?
Yes, 1991, correct.
One of the worst, probably one of the worst times for real estate, and definitely for the hotel business.
Very definitely, yes. And I still remember the phrase then was "stay alive till 95," because things were so bad. They said somehow things will get better in 95.
So what happens in 1991?
Well, the Gulf War was on. Travel was abysmal. There was not much going on in terms of tourism as well on account of that. Hotels are filing bankruptcy petitions on a regular basis. So that was definitely not a nice time for the hotel business in New York.
So what is this hotel operator who learned every aspect of running a hotel, including setting the tables and the reservation system, doing now in New York? Ending up, and you didn't have a law degree. You're in the bankruptcy court.
No, I did not have a law degree, but I'm a quick learner. And yes, I was in bankruptcy court because a couple of our assets then, when I'm saying our, I meant my employer then, were in bankruptcy. And so I spent a fair amount of time in bankruptcy court trying to, set the records for bankruptcy filings.
So what happens? What happens the fortuitous day that one would say, and you're in the bankruptcy court and something happens, and you meet people who subsequently became your partners in Apple Corp?
Well, that was the genesis of Apple Corp, yes. One of the assets of Chotwell was a triple net lease from the principals who are currently my partners, and we met in bankruptcy court, and they felt that they had other assets that would benefit from my expertise, and asked me to come over and join them. and that's how I started Apple Core with them.
So let's talk about some of the assets. The first asset, which was this one, was what? It was an SRO? Or?
It was an SRO building, really run down on 32nd Street or Fifth Avenue. That really, in those days, was a very tough street because the Martinique was next door. And the Martinique then was still in a state of disrepair. So we took it over and...
what was it called at that time?
It was called the Aberdeen. The Aberdeen as in Scotland. And but it was an SRO largely, and it did have transient business as well, but very poorly kept. And so we had to spend millions of dollars in making it a proper transient hotel, which it is till today.
And what is it today?
It's today known as a La Quinta hotel. It's part of the La Quinta chain, which is out of Texas. It's a franchise.
How many rooms?
It's got 182 rooms. It's a landmark property, by the way, and it's got some history behind it. The architecture is from the École des Beaux-Arts, which is the French school, and a lot of American architects at the turn of the last century came over here, and the expertise and knowledge.
So it's on the National Landmark.
Yes, it's a city landmark building, so you can't touch the outside the way it is right now. So it's got gorgeous gargoyles and things. It's a very pretty building. Yeah.
So what was the second hotel?
The second hotel was the Wentworth, as it was then known. The Wentworth was basically started out in the 20s, that is the 20th century, in 1920s, as a two-hotel building, one on 47th Street, one on 46th Street. One was the Patterson on 47th Street, and the other was the Wentworth on 46th Street. It has a little bit of a history to it as well. At one time in the 30s, there was a relative of the Kennedy family that owned the Patterson on 47th Street. So going back in time, that is. But then then it was merged right after the war into one building, one hotel, so to speak, even though till today it has two entrances. And so
this is on?
This is on 46th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. And today it's the hotel at Times Square, a boutique hotel that's got really very nice fittings and amenities that really it's a proud property in our portfolio.
Now, you told me when you got together, what was it called before it was the hotel in Times Square? It was the Wentworth, and then it...
Well, it was the Wentworth. When we first took it over, we branded it as a quality hotel. So back then, this is the 90s, remember, early to mid-90s, and New York still didn't have the level of tourism that we saw in the 2000s, and so we needed this affiliation with a national chain, and I linked up with the Choice Group to make it a quality hotel. And after 4 or 5 years, switched over to a Super 8, which is part of the Wyndham Hotel Group, now known as Wyndham, but back then it was Ascendant. And then subsequently I made it an independent.
So I think there's a great interesting story why you called it the Hotel at Times Square. For the internet?
Well, absolutely. If you Google 3 words, hotel, Times Square, my hotel is going to be number 1 on the first page, not just on the first page, but number 1. So in today's world, clearly the distribution channel that affects us the most is the internet. And from around the world, that's what people look to book you or buy your services, whatever the case may be. And I think that's the reason I chose that name.
Number 3 hotel. What goes next?
The number 3 hotel is formerly known as the Rutledge on Lexington and 30th. Once again, it was a triple net lease to an unrelated third party, which we took back.
But that has a history also. That
it too has a history. It was a women's hostel, and back in the 50s, I guess, women had few places where they could go to safely. But then that too fell into disrepair, and it became an SRO, and so it was the neighborhood itself was not doing that great. Southern Murray Hill. And I
like that, Southern Murray Hill.
Yeah, it is Southern Murray Hill. But we transformed it. I had people in the neighborhood from really nice buildings that are just a block away come and thank me for doing what we did over there and saying, you transformed the blight. There were prostitutes, there were drug dealers around there in the early 90s when we took it over. So today it's That's just
You know, it's very interesting. People don't realize that section of Lexington Avenue was a bed of prostitution and drugs and everything.
Absolutely.
And the neighborhood has changed.
right.
And that today is a Ramada Inn.
It's a Ramada hotel, yes.
And that's probably maybe changed also.
That too will become an independent
With
before
another
long.
Google.
Well, Google friendly, shall we call
Google
it?
friendly. So that's number 3. So how do we get to number 4? What's number 4?
Number 4 is a small hotel that too was sort of family connected, so to speak, called the Remington on 46th and Broadway. We changed that to a Comfort Inn, a Choice brand, and I would like to make that an independent to have some issues.
How big of a house?
It's
hotel
only
is that?
79 rooms. It's the smallest hotel we have, but it's a very nice hotel. And unfortunately, I have a franchise agreement there that's going to last a little bit.
Now, before we talk about number 5, when we were getting together, you were talking to me about probably both hotels with regard to the millennium. What happened with the hotels? You know, the 2000th, the anniversary.
Oh yes, yeah,
Yeah,
the turn of the century. Absolutely. Well, you know, one thing, part of what I've done in setting up AppleCore is we have our own 24/7 reservation system. Back in the days when the internet was not there, that was critical. We still have it, the 24/7 facility, but of course now we use the internet as an integral part of this 24/7 facility. So rate and dynamic pricing is a huge part of our DNA, and we've always maximized rate. And so I think what you're alluding to is the turn of the century when our rates were somewhere in the average rate, that is, for that weekend was somewhere in the $1,450 range, because we charged as high as $2,500 for some of those nights, and we booked the rooms in advance, non-refundable deposits. So I believe we had probably the highest ADR in Manhattan for that weekend. So, across the board, no matter what lodging facility you looked at.
Number 5.
Number 5 was a loft office building, also on 32nd.
Which I think is an interesting story. You know, this was a building on 32nd, which, you know, we joke, you and I. 32nd Street is Little Korea.
Yes. It is Little Korea, yes.
I mean,
and it's a very vibrant street today.
It's a very vibrant
yeah,
street.
yeah.
And, you know, you had the property over there
right.
already, so you
Right.
knew the type of property, and you knew the vibrancy of
And we knew how the street was developing. I mean, even in today's recession-filled market, so to speak, for retail, you have a space on 32nd Street, it's gone. There are people vying for retail
How many
space.
hotels are on 32nd Street?
There are 3 between 5th, actually 4 between 5th and Broadway, if you count the Stanford, which is an all-Korean-owned property. And then there's a Holiday Inn, which is the former Martinique, besides the 2 that we have. So there are 4.
So you and your partners, one of their friends, owns this loft building.
Correct.
And there are some tenants, not
Right.
too many.
Right.
And what happens over there? You buy
Well, we
the
had a
building?
variety of tenants, some regular tenants and some irregular, for want of a better word.
Some type of unique transients.
Unique transients, yeah, on the 16th and 17th floor, who just didn't want to vacate no matter what sweetheart deal we were prepared to offer them. So it was a spa that was there. So eventually we had to use, let's say, certain powers of persuasion to get them to leave. And we transformed that into a beautiful hotel that's soon to be an independent. It's today the Red Roof Inn on 32nd.
And how large is that?
It's 171 rooms.
Now, but that was a short, I mean, it's very difficult to convert an office building to hotel, and you did it, you and your partners did it very well.
I did it. I must say that the credit for that goes almost entirely to me, because I spearheaded it from top to bottom, literally, in terms of the conversion, being there with the contractors, and I was the GC basically myself. Yes, we did it in 11 months. We did convert it from an office building to a hotel in 11 months flat.
And then you told me you decided, I don't know why you left 32nd Street or Lexington Avenue or Times Square, you decided that you'd go out to Long Island.
Yes. Well, we wanted to diversify, Michael. That was our thinking. You know, we were too Manhattan-centric, and we said, you know what, let's go to Long Island. And I picked this location in Islip, the town of, it's actually not the town of Islip, but it's near Islip Airport. And that time, this was way back in 2001, I believe, there was talk of Islip being the 4th airport. And there was a competition between Stewart up in Newburgh and this one for it to be the 4th airport serving New York, the other 3 being Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia. So I said, you know what, if that's what happens, then we want to be in there quickly. So we go and buy this 4-acre plot of land over there, right next to the airport, and it takes us 3 years to get off the ground.
Interesting. You do a building in New York City, which is normally the hardest place in the world, in 11 months, and this takes 3 years to get off the ground.
This is the thing. I mean, in New York, as I'm sure many of your other people who have come on your show have pointed out, that your building here is as of right once you've got your zoning and other things. Not so in these places. So every little agency, and I mean the operative word is little, gives you a very big hard time. And we had the town architect telling us what she felt should be the right color and tone of the building, and saying she didn't want a Texas-like building over here. So that was the kind of hoop that we were put through. Those were the kind of hoops we were put through to get there, and it took us 3 years to finally start construction.
Now, the interesting thing about you, and we were talking about this last week and prior to the show, is that you've done a number of things in the city. You've been involved with the Hotel Association.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You were the chairman of the hotel.
Past chairman, yes.
So tell my audience what the Hotel Association is.
The Hotel Association is an association of hotel owners and operators that have hotels in the city, and that includes all 5 boroughs, not just Manhattan. So it's an association that argues for the interests of the hotel owners and operators, in terms of advancing issues that are of importance to us, from zoning to tax issues to even labor-related issues.
Now, in addition, besides the Hotel Association, you've spent a lot of time visiting Europe and India. You told me once a number of months ago, you made 4 or 5 trips over a very short period of time.
Yes. Well, in India, my partners and I, we looked very actively at trying to do a real estate transaction there. 3 transactions, actually, 3 different transactions in different parts of the country. Unfortunately, none of them came to pass. We spent a lot of money and time, of course, in trying to do it. It's a totally different dynamic. It's a totally different landscape.
Tell me about your partners, because these people have been instrumental.
Yes.
Who are they?
Well, there are 2 families, essentially, that are the mainstay of the company.
They're sons of Holocaust survivors?
Sons of Holocaust survivors, sons-in-laws of Holocaust survivors. And their forefathers, the fathers, I should say, came here and bought some very good investments at a time when it didn't seem so good. I mean, Times Square in the 60s and 70s was not considered a good place to buy, but that's where they chose to buy, and over time turned out to be excellent investments.
And how active are they in the business?
They're active in the sense that this is one of their mainstays, but I run the business. I run the hotel end of things completely from soup to nuts, but they certainly are, this is a big part of their business.
Before I get to the family, how do you see, I mean, as I said earlier in the show, in 1991 when you came to New York, you came, stay alive to 95 was the comment. And it may have taken 3 to 4 years at that time, or maybe 5 years to survive. The hospitality industry in 2009, the end of 2008, 2009 was probably one of the worst that you've seen. Would you say it was worse, or?
I'd say it's worse now in one way. In some ways, it's significantly worse. And the way that it's worse now is that you get a lot of supply. In 91, you simply didn't have the level of supply that we are seeing in the market today. The better aspect of this recession is that once the business environment starts to pick up, one will see that some of the supply is going to be taken up more quickly than before. We live in a more dynamic time, so my expectation is that this oversupply, at least a significant portion of it, will get absorbed in time.
How have you seen the change? We were talking about reservation system. You were innovative, and you created your own for Apple Corps. How much is the internet responsible for getting people to Apple Corps? How do they know? I mean, how do you market Apple Corps?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, because increasingly that's where big and small companies alike go to for their business. To answer how much we get, it's 15 and higher climbing, so it could be 20% by the end of this year. How do we market? It's a combination of things, from using words on your website, to PR campaigns, to even sales campaigns in overseas markets. I mean, we
Right.
do.
You had mentioned to me when we met that you did an overseas campaign.
I've done overseas PR campaigns and sales campaigns from Korea to Brazil, where we've gone and put our.
Because we called Little India. Little Korea is 32nd Street, and 46th Street is called Little Brazil.
Little Brazil, yes. So, and both these markets are strong, particularly Brazil. Korea is getting stronger because it's become a visa waiver country, so meaning that Korean citizens no longer need a visa to come to the U.S. And so I've been already there twice trying to push our product, and we've had two good shows over there, and we're starting to see some business coming from there.
Now you're married for what, 25 years?
25 years, correct.
And your wife's name is?
Kamini.
And you have a daughter who,
I have a daughter, yes.
completed Columbia. She's what's her master, a PhD, right?
Well, she's going to a PhD program.
And her name is?
Aditi, yes.
And your son?
My son's Rohan. He's a sophomore at Baruch.
At Baruch.
Yeah.
So, growing up, did you ever think you'd be a hotel operator?
Growing up as a kid, probably not, but the other end of the teenage spectrum, yes, because by the time I was starting to see some of these hotels in India, and I certainly did see that as a vocation.
I mean, in New York, there is one. The Pierre is owned by Taj.
Yes, Taj.
Taj, which is the large Indian chain.
It's the largest Indian chain, yes.
Do you?
It's Tata's actually.
Tata, right?
Yes, Tata Group.
Do you see Apple Corps getting to larger hotels?
In one of our, at this point, aborted 3 ventures in India was going to be a 5-star luxury hotel in the southern city of Chennai, formerly known as Madras. In retrospect, I'm glad we didn't do it, because there's a lot of oversupply there right now. But we have looked at this end of the market before, and there's no reason we may not in the future. But there's nothing on the cards as of today.
Would you prefer to expand in your present markets, Little Korea and Little Brazil?
I think not.
Because you've done well.
Right.
You know your product, and it's always important.
Right. Well, in Manhattan, yes, but I think there'll be opportunities the next couple of years because of the level of supply we have. So we certainly are going to be keeping our eyes and ears open.
And in the boroughs?
I'm not that positive about the boroughs, to be quite honest. Never was, even in the so-called good times. And we believe in Manhattan as for our product.
So it's interesting. The son of an Army brat, we'll say an Air Force brat.
Right.
Please, I'm only joking. You know
right.
that.
Yeah.
Who has been in Cornell?
Yes.
California.
Right.
North Carolina. Returned to New York. Yeah. You've really done a very interesting building, and you've become a builder of New York. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Michael.
Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's Window Company, New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding is provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackel Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, M&T Bank, Muss Development, LLC, the Moynihan Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, W Financial Mortgage Fund, the Wyckoff Group.